Turn up the volume and grab your notebook. It's time to live life consciously. Welcome to Conscious Not Crazy. I'm Kori, your host, and a parent just like you. I'm here to share from my own experiences as a parent and educator to help you better understand the why behind your child's behavior and to provide you with tools to end all of the exhausting and unproductive power struggles. So feel proud you took the first step by tuning into this podcast. I hope this approach to parenting changes your life the way it changed mine. Welcome back to Conscious Not Crazy. I'm Kori, your host, and I'm grateful to be here today. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about a very specific topic. And the topic that I want to talk to you about today is boundaries. And before I get started, if you are liking the content, if you are finding this information helpful, I'm just going to ask that you like and follow me on whatever podcast platform you're actually listening to. That would be super helpful to get the word out there that this content is available for other maybe struggling parents or educators or really anyone. And if you know anyone that you think might benefit from this, I would be grateful if you shared it with them. But today we are going to talk about boundaries. Boundaries in relation to parenting and why they are vital and so very important. And again, something we should be modeling for our children. To kick off boundaries, first of all, if things aren't going well in your home and you feel like it's complete chaos, nobody listens, they just don't do anything you ask them to do, they're not picking up their room, they're not packing their lunch for school, they're not putting their toys away, they're not going to bed when you ask them to go to bed. So it doesn't matter if you have a toddler or a teenager, boundaries are an essential part of parenting. And it's a skill you're going to want to master and have just in life. It's going to benefit you to have this skill in the workplace, in personal relationships, whether with your spouse or your significant other or your parents or other family members. So boundaries are just a crucial part, or I should say an essential part of life. And basically when you instill boundaries, you are setting your limit. You're telling people what you are willing to do. Because what we know, and I've talked about this before, the only person we actually have control over, the only person we can make do anything is ourselves. But it's interesting because when we have kids, we have this crazy notion that we can make them go to bed, that we can make them go use the potty, that we can make them eat their dinner. We have this crazy notion that we can make the poor behavior stop, that we can make them do something, that we can make them say something. And then what happens is we attempt to get them to, and it backfires, blows up in our face. It's not working. It's not happening. They're not motivated. They don't care. They don't care what we want them to do. So then what happens? A power struggle, because they're not doing the thing we want them to do. We're giving all of our power to them because now we're flustered and frustrated. And we'll have a whole nother podcast on this. I've talked about it before, but I'm going to dive into it a little deeper. But composure is a big one. When you are no longer composed with your child or with any person, you've literally handed your power to them. And if you like giving all of your power away, keep on doing it. I suggest you practice the skill of composure. In the short term, what I have learned is it's hard. We want to react. Somebody says something hurtful. We want to say something bad. We want to make them do that thing in that moment when it comes to our kids. It's harder to wait and do nothing and take that pause, but it is better in the long term. And you will see more success in that in the long term because we're able to make better decisions when we can function from the cognitive processing center of our brain, when we can use those prefrontal lobes to communicate. we are going to be a lot more effective. So I'm just touching on composure. I've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again, but tonight we're going to focus on boundaries. And boundaries are essential. So if you feel like things are hectic, they're not going the way you wanted them to, then you are probably lacking in boundaries. I read a book years ago, and it was a book literally called Boundaries. This book in particular does have a faith-based. I didn't know it when it was recommended to me, but it does have a faith-based or Christian philosophy because it references the Bible. I will tell you the things it talks about regarding boundaries are not related to faith. They're just associating it with the Bible. So regardless of your beliefs, I think the book could be super helpful. But the book is called Boundaries. They have several different versions of it, but the big one, the one that has every aspect of boundaries in it, because I've read a couple of them, it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. Fabulous book, changed my life. So I highly recommend it. I will make sure I put the link to the book in the show notes. But boundaries are essential. Like I said, they're essential in parenting. They're essential in your job. They're essential in your relationships. They are just a necessary thing to live a less stressful life. Because if you're very clear on what your expectations or your limits are, then you don't have to make anybody else do anything because you can't do that anyway. And if you're trying to make other people do things, if you're trying to make your kids behave, if you're trying to make your kids be respectful, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You're not going to accomplish anything. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like a failure as a parent. And you're not. You're not failing. We're just trying different things. But I'm hoping that the tool of boundaries will support you on your journey at whatever stage you're at, whether you have toddlers, whether you have elementary school kids, whether you have middle school kids, whether you have high school kids, or whether you have grown children. Boundaries work in every relationship. And so let's talk about what boundaries look like. And the reason I'm talking about this right now is I do a lot of consulting work. And this has been a very common topic, meaning when people call me and they're struggling with different things in their home, and I have a lot of friends with teenagers. Well, they're just disrespectful. I do everything for them. I'm like, great. Then it sounds like you're lacking some boundaries. Maybe you shouldn't do so many things until you establish what needs to be done and what it'll need to look like for you to do those things for them. Because often what happens is we feel taken advantage of, especially if you have teenagers. I have a 13 and 15-year-old. You're driving them around everywhere. You're rearranging your schedule. Their plans change all the time. They're never solid. So don't ever let them tell you they are, because they're never solid plans. I will say my daughter's friends are better with their plans than my son's, but the plans change often. And so it's an inconvenience. It is an inconvenience, and this requires me to have some boundaries. Like, hey, I told you I could take you here. I could take you up to the shopping center to meet your friends when I thought you were going at noon. Right now, I'm not available, but I will be available to do it again at this time or this time. That's what boundaries look like. What no boundaries looks like is, oh my gosh, you guys can't get your plans right. This is so frustrating. You just don't have any respect for me. What is wrong with you? That looks like shame, judgment, frustration, lack of control, and giving all your power to your child. Now you're a victim to their circumstance. You're allowing yourself to be a victim. So I want you to think about that. Boundaries are powerful. Brené Brown says the most compassionate people, so think about this too. The most compassionate people are boundary people. So you can have a lot of compassion and have a lot of boundaries. I love that. I love that. She's got some great books as well. But that's the difference between having a boundary and not. Maybe your child's not cleaning their room. And instead of that, you've told them like, hey, you'll need to clean your room before tomorrow. Or you might remind them, hey, I know you want to do a sleepover tomorrow. It's summer right now. So I know you want to do a sleepover tomorrow after the swim meet. I would love that for you. I just want to let you know the sleepover will not be able to happen unless your room is clean and you've done all your chores. So if we get to the swim meet and you're asking me to go to the sleepover, just so we're clear, and you haven't done those chores, those things I've asked you to do, maybe it's take out the trash, empty the dishwasher, whatever it is, whenever you've established in your home as their chores, then if those things are done, you've got to follow through and not allow them to have the sleepover. And then you're going to do it in a way that's like, well, you're not going to say, I told you, you didn't clean your room. You're not going to shame. You're not going to punish them. You're not going to judge them. These are consequences to choices that they chose, that your child chose to make. That's what boundaries look like. It's accountability, and it feels amazing because now they can't be mad at you. I mean, they might still be a little mad at you, but you're just reminding them like, hey, remember yesterday? Because let's say this, the swim meet's over. Okay, mom, I want to go to so-and-so's house for the sleepover. Oh gosh, I really wanted you to be able to go. But remember, what did I tell you needed to be done so you could go? And then the child's going to remember that conversation and be like, oh man. And maybe they say, well, if I go home and do that, then can I go? Then that's up to you to decide if your limit is available to take them later, if it's not too far. Let's say they had a ride to the sleepover. Well, I would love that for you, but I'm not available to drive you. And because you weren't prepared and didn't do the things that we talked about yesterday, you don't have a ride anymore. So we'll have to do the sleepover another night. I'm so sorry. I know that stinks. That's why it's so important to make sure you get your things done so you don't miss things that are important to you. Do you see how different that sounds as opposed to, well, you're not going to that sleepover. You didn't clean your room. You just don't listen to anything. I told you. That feels like a personal attack. They're going to be pissed at you. The other way is the boundary you set, an expectation you set, and you're reminding them that they had a choice. They have power and they chose to make a poor choice. And the goal of this way is that their anger doesn't get directed towards you. And if it does, you can say, yeah, you can empathize. It's frustrating. It's unfortunate. It's sad when you miss things. I'm sure you're feeling disappointed. It's good to empathize with them. Those are real feelings. And they feel shitty because they made a poor choice. But you can empathize with how they might be feeling. And then now is the opportunity to coach them. Well, hey, what do you think you could have done differently so this doesn't happen again? So you don't have to miss the next sleepover. Because I don't want that for you. I want you to go to this sleepover. So it looks a lot different because there's an accountability piece to it. And there's a coaching piece. We're going to talk about what we can do different. I tell my kids this all the time, and you could tell your kids this at any age. I expect you to make mistakes. I expect it. I make mistakes every day, and I'm a lot older than you are. And mistakes are what teach us. That is how we learn. Because one thing you don't want in this world is for your child to be afraid to do anything because they think it always has to be perfect. Because that is an unrealistic expectation. And there's a lot of people that live out there in the world that are too fearful of failing. Therefore, they do nothing. They live a very stagnant, boring life. And we don't want that for our kids. We don't want that for ourselves either. So you got to model this shit. You're going to have to get outside your own comfort zone, and you're going to have to practice boundaries with other people too. So maybe when your kids are with you and somebody's infringing on your boundaries, you have to draw the line. And it feels really good because you're holding them accountable and you're just saying what you're willing to do. And you're saying, well, that's your choice. I can do this or this, but I'm not available at this time. Maybe somebody asked you to help them move or pick them up at an appointment or something, and you're the adult. It's not good to overextend yourself, right? When you really can't do something. So like, hey, I would be happy to do that. This is when I'm available to do that. And you let them know. You establish boundaries. Maybe somebody is taking advantage of you and always dropping their kids off at your house. Like they think you're the babysitter and you're just a neighbor. hey, I noticed you keep bringing your kids over and I love your kids, but then you tell them the times that work. My kids are available to play during these times, but this time doesn't work for me because I have work to do. Those are boundaries. Maybe you have a toddler or, a smaller child that doesn't pick up their toys. And now they want to sit down and watch their favorite show or have their favorite snack. Oh yeah, you want your snack? You acknowledge it and you do it with joy and a smile and your attitude and your voice inflection. All of that matters. And you look at them like, yeah, you want your snack? Okay, I'll go get your snack ready and I'll know you're ready for your snack when all your blocks are picked up. And you get really excited about it. And then they might, well, I want the snack. Well, yep, I know you want the snack now, but where do you want me to put the snack? Do you want me to have the snack wait for you on the counter? Or do you want me to put it over there on the table? Okay, because with little kids, they need choices. So they feel like they have some power. And then you're like, do you want help? And then you can make it fun. Don't get in power struggles. As soon as you feel like you're trying to win, stop, change gears. So then maybe they're headed to the blocks and they're still like thinking snack, because kids they get hyper focused, right? How fast do you think you can clean them up? Visual sand timers are amazing with little kids. So maybe you grab a little visual sand timer where you set the timer if you don't have a sand timer on the microwave. Most people have a microwave in their house. Set the timer on the microwave. Or even an old school timer that you turn if you have one of those, something they can see. And you're like, do you think you can clean up the blocks in 2 minutes or 3 minutes? And then you start the timer because now it's a game. The more we can bring joy and have fun and build connection, the more compliance you're going to get and the more boundaried you are. Boundaries make kids feel safe. They know the expectation. They learn to be accountable. They learn that there's consequences for their choices. And mind you not, there's consequences for their choices. They're not blaming you. We live in a blame culture. Everybody wants to just blame everybody else for everything. It drives me bonkers. There's no accountability. And we need to bring back accountability. We need to hold kids to the standards we set and the expectations we set. Am I perfect about it? Absolutely not. I just try to do my best. Some days are better than others. So one of my favorite things to say is just be better than yesterday. Just be better than yesterday. Every day is a new day. Don't be so hard on yourself as a parent. Just do better than yesterday. Every day you get to start over. And we want to model that for our kids too, because if we get stuck on everything we did wrong yesterday, is that going to help us today? No. Our reticular activating system is focused on everything we did wrong. So what do you think is going to happen? Are we going to do things right or more things wrong? More things wrong. Whatever you focus on, you get more of. So do I want to focus on the things I did wrong or do I want to focus on the things I want to change and do better? I want to focus on the things I want to change and do better. And don't give up better for perfect. Better does not mean perfect. And that, my friends, is on my business card because that has been my biggest struggle, is not doing things thinking they need to be to a certain standard and to be perfect. And really the best place to be and the place to live is in action and in doing the things, whether they're perfect or not, because things are not always going to flow like you want them to flow. They're going to take longer than you want them to take. And even trying on some of these things like setting boundaries for your kids, it's going to feel awkward when you try it. It's going to feel uncomfortable and weird and your kids are going to look at you and it might not even work because you don't know exactly what you're doing. And I have friends that ask me like, well, how do you make it sound so easy? And I'm like, because I've been doing it a really long time. And you actually have to rewire. We are all born into a family, right? And we're raised a certain way. And the way we're raised actually creates pathways in our brain for how we react and respond in certain situations. So it actually like literally wires our brain to be a certain way. So to deprogram that, to change that wiring takes time. It takes practice. Just like you don't go to the gym and lift one weight and build a muscle. It takes years of repetition, years of work. This is also a muscle you have to work. In order for it to change, you've got to change your behavior. Every day you got to work at it. And I can just tell you that if you decide to do this work, it will serve you in every aspect of your life. And boundaries are key, even in your own personal relationships. I was in a relationship at one point where it wasn't going well. And I had to establish a boundary of, we either need to go to therapy or there's nothing to talk about. And the person at the time was trying to take the conversation all different directions. And this is at the beginning of my understanding of boundaries. This is actually when I was reading that book, and this was years ago. And I said, no, stop. There's nothing to talk about, because my boundary, the line that I drew, was either therapy to work on these things, or there's nothing to talk about, because I knew that there needed to be more support beyond the scope of us. And eventually that worked. I didn't have to argue. I didn't get in a power struggle. I just drew the line and set my boundary. It helps for our kids to see us practice this. It helps for us to practice it because we can see it work and we can feel what it feels like when it works. And it feels really good to not give your power away, to remain composed, to not be triggered, and just to say what you're willing to do and what you're not. And with my kids, I do it all the time. And when they're little, the boundaries look different. It's like, maybe you read books at night. It's like, okay, we're going to be ready for books once you've potty, brush your teeth, and your PJs are on. So you're letting them know the things that have to happen, and then we'll read a book. And the first one that's ready gets to pick the book. If you have more than one kid, you can make it a race. And yep, there's a winner and a loser. And that's okay. Not everybody gets a trophy. Kids need to understand that they're going to win sometimes, then they're going to lose sometimes. And what could they do different next time if they want to win? And they're not going to win every time. And it's okay for them to understand and cope with that feeling and know that that's what makes them want to work harder, move faster, whatever it is. That's a skill they need. When you play a game, somebody wins, somebody loses. And we need more of that. And everybody doesn't have to win. Everybody doesn't have to feel good all the time, because that's not reality. That is not realistic. And that is not serving our kids to raise them in that way. Different kids have different strengths. And I tell my kids that. I'm like, yeah, I notice you are like, one of my kids is always on time. She has all of her stuff together. She's waiting on me to go out the door. My other kid, not so much. I don't make an identity out of it with them. I just acknowledge that some of us are better in other areas than others. And we just need to work on those things that we're not great at to get better at them. Those are just areas that we need to work on. And we all have them. We all have things we're not awesome at. And when we're not awesome at something, where do we go? It's good to know the people that have the skills that we need, because maybe we don't need that skill. Maybe we just need to be resourceful and go source somebody else that has it. That is also a skill. So you don't have to know and be great at everything. You just have to know where to get the person that is. I mean, I'm handy with some things, but then I know the handyman to call when I can't do it, when it's above my head. So yes, I highly recommend trying on boundaries. Try them on in your own life. Try them on in all the relationships in your life with friends, family, and with your kids. And if your life feels chaotic with kids, they're lacking boundaries 100%. One of my friends, we were talking, because again, just like I was talking before, we had a couple conversations and she was like, well, I just do everything for her. And I tell her that she just doesn't care and she doesn't respect me. And I'm like, you're telling her everything about you. And when you're telling your kid everything they're making you feel, one, you're taking it personal. You're taking their choices personal. And I love my friend and I tell her, I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. Good friends are honest. And I love her and she's doing the best she knows how, right? And I just want to support her and teach her that there's a better way. So I just said to her, I said, instead of telling, because when you're telling, you're taking it personal. and you're not seeing her behavior for what it is. And instead say, hey, I notice that you're talking back to me a lot and being disrespectful. And I also notice that I'm driving you everywhere. And I notice there's a lot of places that you want me to take you. But what I'm going to tell you is if you're being disrespectful to me, I'm probably not going to be as inclined to take you those places. Do you think I'm going to want to take you more? And then you can ask them questions. Do you think I'm going to want to take you more or less places if you talk to me in that tone? The child's going to say less. Right. Do you like it when I take you places? Yes. Okay. What do you think you could change or what do you think you could work on so this setup works? I take you places. I don't feel disrespected and you're happy that I'm taking you there, right? What do you think you could work on or change? I could be more respectful in the tone I talk to you is probably what our daughter would say or something like that. But what you want to do is you want to ask questions. Stop telling the kids, establish the boundary of what's not working for you, what it needs to look like for it to work for you, what you're willing to accept and not accept. So establish that boundary and be very clear about it. Then you can ask questions. Well, how would you feel if someone was treating you like that? Would you want to take him and drive him around the city? Would you want to drop everything you had to do? Because I have work too. And a lot of times I put my work second. I stay up late at night because I know she told me that. She goes, I stay up really late at night cleaning the house and doing all these things so she can do all these things for her daughter. I said, you need to tell her that. I'm sacrificing my time because I love you, because I care about you, and I want you to be at all these places. I want you to have the best experience as a teenager ever because I'm your mom and I love you. But what I notice is I don't feel as though you're being grateful or appreciative and you're not being respectful. And when I feel that way, I wonder to myself, why am I going out of my way to accommodate this schedule? Does that make sense? Do you understand why I might be feeling that way? And what's your perspective? Like maybe you ask her, what's your perspective on this? But the bottom line is you establish the boundary. Like, hey, I want to do these things for you, but I am going to expect you talk to me in a respectful tone and you have a positive attitude and you get all your chores and things done. Like, so whatever the expectations are, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but you establish the expectations. Then you say what you're willing to do once those things have been met with older kids. With younger kids, you do it too. Maybe they want to go to the park or go to a friend's house. Okay, I'll know you're ready to go when you have both your shoes on and your coat, and you have your coat and this and that, everything you need them to get. And then you can be like, I'm going to time you and see how fast you can do it, just to add a little fun game to the whole thing. The more fun you can make it with the little ones, one, you're building connection with them. And two, it's fun. Because I will tell you, whether your child is 2 or 20, all they want is connection. They want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. And we don't want to assume that our disrespectful teenager is doing it to hurt us. You know, their emotions and their hormones are all over the place. So when I notice my kids being yucky to me, I usually ask them like, hey, I noticed you seem off and you've been a little snippety. What's going on? I'm usually going to approach them with positive intent first, just to get more information and maybe start a conversation. But think of boundaries when things feel crazy, when you feel like I can't make anybody do anything, no one's listening to me. I want you to think boundaries. So what boundaries are you not setting? And start thinking about how you can establish some boundaries. And if you need to write them down, when our kids were little, we had charts on the back of their bedroom doors. And we literally listed the things that had to happen before we could read books at bedtime. We didn't care what order it happened in. Like, do you want to do this first or this? It might be 2 choices with each thing. And then we'll know you're ready for books. And I'll be ready to read to you. We'll be ready for dessert. We'll be ready for dinner. When? We'll be ready when. Think we'll be ready when. I'll know you're ready when. Also letting him know, like, I really want that for you. But in order for that to happen, remember what needs to happen. And you can even have them repeat it back to you. So boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And check out that boundaries book. It's amazing. And like I said, it does reference the Bible. The concepts are amazing regardless. All this does is give you the concept, and then it references kind of the verse in the Bible that correlates to it. And then, of course, I think Brene Brown has books on boundaries as well. So I've read so many of her books. They've all kind of run together, but I'll look because I think she has a boundaries book too, or one where she talks about boundaries. But I will put the boundaries book in the show notes. If this content was helpful, please like and follow, share with friends. And I will be letting you guys know as soon as that website is completely ready. I am super excited for everyone to have access to it. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out anytime. All my contact information is also in the show notes. I'm looking forward to several guests that I have coming up. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for tuning in to Conscious Not Crazy. I hope you're finding comfort in knowing you are not alone. Parenting is hard and the struggle is real. I am forever grateful for this amazing community of like-minded parents striving to simply do better than yesterday. Until next time, keep on living life consciously. I can't wait to connect with you again soon. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and visit my website, consciousnotcrazy.com. All the details can be found in the show notes. Now go get back to the never-ending, exhausting, and yet most fulfilling job you'll ever do.